Society tames the wolf into a dog, and man is the most domesticated animal of all. My friends, the Shih Tzu is a direct descendant of the gray wolf of China. Years of breeding for the weaker qualities and the weaker feelings created the dog with loud, high-pitched bark and no bite. It gets pushed around in baby strollers, while the wolf is wild and majestic and free in its soul, and is still in touch with its primal nature. And here's the thing, is if the wolf can be domesticated into a Shih Tzu, a barbarian human being, a wild man, can be domesticated into the Shih Tzu's equivalent. And this might be happening in modern society. It's no secret that we've become more domesticated today as men, and really as humans. We've lost touch with our physical vitality and wildness, but even more pernicious and more dangerous, we have been indoctrinated into a cult of weak feelings. Now, this is not a video about becoming a macho man, so put down your rifle, black coffee, and TRT. This video is about getting in touch with the full spectrum of the masculine experience and reclaiming something that was lost. Now, this video will trigger a lot of people, but I just want to state very clearly here at the beginning that things like masculine fire, intensity, ambition, excellence, and courageous action, the heroic blood, per se, this is one aspect of masculinity. There is the aspect of the loving father, the gentle, present sage. There's many different archetypes within each human being, and each person's nature is unique. So I'm not saying you should be this way or you need to be this way, but what I am saying is that the warrior spirit I'm speaking to is a universal aspect that is so important within the male psyche for helping us overcome ourselves and overcome the resistances, fears, and limitations in life to becoming our greatest version. And without the warrior online, we're screwed. So let's dive into it. Welcome back to Wisdom Warriors. I'm Christian. Today we're talking about Friedrich Nietzsche, the will to power, and the masculine underground. Let's do this thing. Weak feelings are essentially feelings that have low intensity and are on the negative side. Feelings like melancholy, apathy, timidness, cowardice, low-grade misery, and loneliness. I want to give you an example of this and what the masculine experience is like when it comes to weak feelings. Is a few months ago, it was winter time, and man, I was feeling lonely. I just moved to Denver, didn't have many friends yet. I kept getting let down by women, and slowly this low-grade depression and melancholy just kind of swept over me, where life just felt dull. It felt gray, right? And I was just tired, I was fatigued, and I went to this men's circle, this combat men's circle, and it's about sharing vulnerably and also getting in touch with your masculinity. And man, it woke me up. Because in that circle, he said, bring out your anger, right? And I was like, I don't feel angry about anything. I just feel sad and I feel tired. And I started looking deeper into myself. It's like, where is my anger? And we were supposed to express our anger in words through the circle. And suddenly I found it is I was angry at insomnia. I was angry at the state of disconnection and isolation and atomization in the world. I was angry at the substances and the addictions and the things that I let subject me and subjugate me for so long. I was angry. And I brought forth that anger, and I realized that this low-grade melancholy was just the tip of the iceberg of just a spear of anger that goes deep into my soul. And I just brought forth that anger, and I ripped into the heavy bag with so much intensity. And man, did I feel liberated after that. I felt so liberated and so much more aggressive in life and so much more in tune with my masculine testosterone, forward-leaning progress. And life started to feel a lot more joyful. And here's the thing is strong states of feeling create change. They create progress. They create momentum. And we do everything in our power in the modern day to numb our states of feeling. We take antidepressants and Adderall and pills. We play video games and social media and distractions and eat shitty food. And everything out here is just decreasing our vitality and decreasing our will to power and decreasing our intensity of experience. And when I'm speaking about emotions here now, I'm not encouraging men to walk around constantly angry or constantly on fire with ambition or always trying to be positive. I'm advocating for a full spectrum human experience that is not lukewarm. Intensity of grief, intensity of sorrow is so much better than just lukewarm, quiet misery or lukewarm pleasure. Give me that over lukewarmness any day. Give me intensity of aspiration, intensity of the will to excellence, intensity of glory, intensity of defeat. Like, give me the full juiciness of life, because this is where spiritual growth comes from. This is where the feeling of being alive comes from. And this is actually where healthy masculinity comes from. You see, in society right now, we try to take a boy and make him into a man by teaching him to be kind and teaching him to be compassionate and empathetic and teaching him to be disciplined and hardworking. And we got some things right, but we got a lot wrong, in the sense that we forget that in order for a boy to become a man, he needs to become a wild animal, a feral beast in the wild places on earth. He needs to almost go into combat. He needs to go to war. He needs to test himself in initiation and on the cliff, crying to God by himself. Like, we forget about the intensity that masculinity actually thrives through. It wakes us up. It reminds us of our mortality, that life is precious, and to give our all, to know ourselves and bring forth our potential is a very wild experience. And we need this kind of thing because it increases the feeling of life. And the more that we have decreased feelings of life, more weak feelings, more lukewarmness, the more we're going to swirl in our base nature. We're going to live with our blinders on. We're going to pursue pleasures. We're going to feel sorry for ourselves, and we're going to not live out or live into our potential. And this gets into a very Nietzschean concept of the will to power. Friedrich Nietzsche was perhaps the most prolific philosopher of all time. And to summarize his philosophy in one quote, I would choose this one. What is good? All that heightens the feelings of power, the will to power, power itself in man. What is bad? All that proceeds from weakness. What is happiness? The feeling that power increases, that a resistance is overcome. Power gets a bad rap today, and that's because we associate it with control, with greed, with shadow forms of authoritarianism. But in Nietzsche's eyes, control is actually a form of weakness. You see, the truly powerful doesn't need to control the world. They're only concerned with expressing their vitality and expressing their nature onto life. Power in the Nietzschean sense is about personal power and vitality, and more specifically, about increasing the feeling of power within one. How does one increase the feeling of power? Well, that's from overcoming a resistance, making progress in your training, in your work, bringing forth your creative will, taking your relationship deeper. Wherever we overcome an obstacle, wherever we overcome ourselves, our feeling of life increases. And whatever increases the feelings of life actually increases our potential. It increases our joy. The will to power, I want you to think about it in terms of self-overcoming. The will to master oneself and master the spaces around us. In fact, this is the most natural thing that boys start trying to do from the moment they're born. They're playing games with other boys, trying to compete, trying to gain mastery of their own little bodies. They're also trying to explore the world, adventure, learn about their environments, and master open space. And then they get older and they try to master things like YouTube or an intellectual frontier or a new continent, like whatever they want to do. They're just trying to expand their feelings of life. In fact, everyone is, unconsciously or consciously. And the problem is our current culture sets us up for tragic failure. We live in a cult of weak feelings where we teach our boys all about pity and about kindness and about empathy, but very little about being dangerous, about being courageous, about taking your hero's quest in life. We shove them into boxes called schoolrooms and these hyper-feminine environments, and then we introduce them to a world of weaponized temptations, where all the pornography, the drugs, the promiscuity, the soft living and comfort food slowly steal their vitality and steal their will to power to the point where their heroic sparks to go be great are squashed. Their heroic sparks to take a great adventure, to increase their mastery of life, get squashed, and they get pushed to become a cog in a machine. There's so many ways in which the modern world represses masculinity, and we're going to talk about this for the rest of this video. But ultimately, we live in a cult of weak feelings in lukewarm waters where men get trapped into their lower nature. As Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "What is bad? All that comes from weakness." Think about this inside of yourself first. When you are weak, you succumb to temptations. You succumb to the will towards maybe dishonesty, lying, taking shortcuts in life. You swirl in ways that ruin your own physical health and the health of those around you. Therefore, corruption is weakness. And a lot of people say that power corrupts. But power does not corrupt, power reveals. If you are a wise, integral Jedi of a man, power is just going to reveal your Qui-Gon Jinn. If you're this weak, sniveling, corrupt creature, power is going to reveal that, and you're going to be that kind of tyrannical king. And that's the thing is when we encourage people to take a vitalistic path through life, and we encourage men to have more freedom and danger and adventure and that like masculine heroic spirit, they're going to become men who are capable of true virtue, who are capable of true goodness. Let's talk about ambition. There's a dark and a light side to ambition, like every other virtue out there. Too much courage becomes recklessness. Not enough courage is cowardice. Too much ambition becomes hubris, which all the ancient Greek stories warn against. But not enough ambition just is apathy. And honestly, it's hard for me to be around men who lack all ambition in their lives because their lives aren't exciting. They're not doing anything. It's very masculine of a man to have high ambition. And it's very interesting is whenever I communicate to people that I'm gunning for greatness, I get a couple responses. One is, "Oh, that's so egotistical," or "That's immature. Why would you want to do that? Like, take it easy." We have this very like pacifist backseat kind of attitude in the West today, especially if you're not just gunning for more money or more success or something. The problem is most boys don't have a frontier anymore. They don't have anywhere that they can truly make progress. Their jobs are uninspiring to them. And because of this will towards ambition, this gets channeled into trying to hustle to make more money or video games. These are the most base forms. Ambition is so powerful. It is this overwhelming desire towards excellence. And if you put that and set those sights on character, if you set those sights on, the tribe, the culture, the community, the family that you want to build, on the life, on the grandeur that you want to live into, like that is actually how you develop a really strong and capable masculinity. Ambition and heroism is essential for the development of boys into men because boys must earn their value. They must cultivate their resources. They must earn skills and all these different ways of having prowess in life, mastery in life, mastery of open spaces, mastery of themselves. And without ambition, they're never really going to achieve this. Now, with all that being said, I know really solid, great men who aren't very ambitious. Okay. They have a different path through life, and their path is more so based on principles, on living on principles versus living towards vision. And I don't think one path is better than the other. Okay. You can have principles and live with a quiet conviction inside of yourself to, move in excellence, to be in integrity, to live with vitality, to live with heart and connection, and prioritizing values that are important to you, right? Principles, I think, are really important. You kind of need both, but men who I meet with high ambition, with high thumos, with high spiritedness that want to make their life into a living story, those men are rare. And that kind of will, man, that is what drives culture forward. Almost every great man, from Napoleon to Alexander the Great to Francis Bacon to Alcibiades, like whoever you really want to put on a pedestal here, most of them had ambition. So ambition gets demonized, pride gets demonized, and I think it's about finding the virtue that's in the center, right? And honestly, I fucking thrive on ambition. It brings progress into my life. It brings this like hip hop spirit of momentum. And I like having goals. I like having a vision that fucking inspires me, that pulls me forward, that lights a flame under my ass. And it creates an intensity of experience. And honestly, it's these lukewarm, timid cats that make me so goddamn frustrated. It's because they don't really want anything. Being over the top, being too extreme, like having too much intensity of experience is bad to them. They just kind of want to be timid and lukewarm, and they call that a virtue when in fact it's cowardice. It's fucking cowardice. My friends, 2 days ago, it was cloudy. I was feeling nostalgic. I was feeling like a very like soft feeling in life. It felt great. I went to the coffee shop. I was journaling. I was writing. And if you know me, you understand that I am a full spectrum human being. I like the softer emotions. I like the stronger emotions. I like the profound emotions. I like the gentle ones. So I was in a more gentle state. But that quickly turned into this like low thumos kind of energy, which is low spiritedness. And all of a sudden, this strong sense of vitality and purpose and progress that I was making in my life kind of drained away. And for about 2 days there, I started to feel very lonely. I started to feel this craving for more pleasure, for women, for something to come into my life. And I got a new gym membership, and I went to the gym and I threw on my freaking killer playlist, my warrior playlist. And I started doing bench press and kicks and handstands and jumping all around like a wild man, where everyone else is kind of like doing their timid fucking motion. And throwing some heavy weight around. And all of a sudden, like that thumos, that fire, that strong, intense feeling of excellence, of ambition, of anger, these darker emotions started to run through my body. The killer came online, right? And it's so interesting is, again, the killer, the warrior kind of energy would have been one of the most dominant and natural demeanors, attitudes, and energies for men to feel for all of time. Whether they were hunting and killing an animal, they were killing off predators, or they were killing enemies and protecting their tribe and protecting the women and people they love. Like, this was the most natural thing across the planet. Every single tribe was basically in constant warfare for most of human history. Like, think about that. It's freaking crazy. And so the killer is a very like natural instinct within mankind, within man. And it's a very strong, it's very embodied, it's very vital, it's full of power. And it's sort of like coming out and just reminding me like, dude, I've been moseying through weak feelings for so long, for 2 days straight. And it's drained my vitality. It's drained my intensity of experience. It's drained my joy and drained my happiness. And I realized that most men exist in that state forever because we don't have violence anymore. They're not connected to their warrior, barbarian, wild man anymore. They don't have sex like a freak of nature anymore. They're just disconnected from the wildness in their soul. And this is a big problem, my friends, because the wildness in your soul is what makes you feel like a freaking man. It's what breaks you out of those slumps and helps you get progress back into life. It just kind of sparked this video in the sense that, man, without aspiration, without the wild barbarian, like without that killer kind of instinct inside of you that society just wants to squash and repress, people are going to swirl in their most base nature, in their lower nature. And they're not going to have that fire, that intensity of experience for true spiritual growth or true self-overcoming and creative growth. Speaking of spirituality, most of the spirituality in the modern day is watered down pacifism and hyper-feminized, broken traditions that are so polar opposite of what our ancestors actually practiced. If we look at something like pagan spirituality, the center of it was honor, was heroic manliness and courage in the face of adversity, was literally the center of spirituality to most peoples. We look at something like Neo-Buddhism today. It's all about non-violence and pacifism and being a vegan and mindfulness, and there's parts of it that are valid, but most of it has been lost in translation. Because if we actually look at the Buddha's life himself, like Gautama, he went and sat under the bo tree with absolute firm resolve to overcome himself, striving for the pinnacle of enlightenment, and overcoming all the demons and the temptations the underworld could throw at him in his quest for total self-mastery. And in this, he became a perfected initiate. And if there isn't a more heroic symbol than that, I don't know what is. Like, he's not living with a bastardized and retarded will. He's living with absolute vitality of his soul, right? It's the same thing with Jesus out in the desert, facing the three great temptations, but facing them with firm resolve and this spirit of heroic self-overcoming. In fact, if we look at every tradition from across the world, self-overcoming seems to be the main thing. Now, there's different paths taken, whether it's more of a watery, wu-wei, Taoist approach, or it's more of the Western fire approach to self-overcoming. That is the center of it, living for something higher. So most of the spirituality today has just been overtaken and corrupted by this love and light cult of weak feelings. Like, you go sit in most conscious circles, even brotherhood circles, you go experience yoga, it's all said in a soft voice, and it's about releasing expectations and basically just drifting into this amorphous blob of presence, when most of our ancestors would have been digging deep through introspection and meditation into the substance of their being and bringing it forth with heroic gusto, striving for the pinnacle of what they can be and what they can give to this world. That was the ancient form of spirituality, and that is the masculine side of spirituality that has totally been forgotten. And hey, the feminine, that's valid too. The presence, the feng shui, the feelings, the emotions, the softer sides of life, like, that's beautiful, it's valid, but it's not what I'm speaking to in this video. Moving into the last part of this video, I want to talk about aspiration, desire, and confidence. Nietzsche, in Thus Spoke Zarathustra, has a great line that goes something like, "Willing with your whole will." That is what the child does. And we need more innocence in our desire. That is how we thrive. And as we've gotten older, we have lost innocence in our desire. We have all this self-doubt and self-criticism. Oh, I don't really want to be great. I don't know if I really want that. Is desire bad? Blah, blah, blah. We have lost our childlike innocence of wanting something with our whole will and bringing our whole will into something. And to me, that's what aspiration is. Like, I'll claim it. I want to be great and famous on YouTube. I'm going to will this with my whole will and bring forth my essence into my action. And it's actually a joyful and thriving experience of doing that. And it's to want something without any self-consciousness about why you want that thing, but just to go for it. And men need aspiration. I think it's really important. We were just talking about ambition, and it's a very similar feeling of aspiring towards an ideal. And this is what the heroic myth used to be for young men. You know, you would learn about Achilles or Heracles and the 12 impossible labors. You would learn about your heroic ancestors and the great chieftains. You would learn about classical figures like Julius Caesar, Alexander the Great, and you would want to aspire to be like them. I remember reading fiction books all the time when I was a kid and just like striving and aspiring to be like these heroes so hard. And the interesting thing is about the heroic myth is every boy and every man here, you're going to face hard times in your life. You're going to lose people you love. You're going to go through heartbreak. You're going to have to leave behind addictions. You're going to have to shed your skin. And that is the hero's journey in and of itself, is this great down going to shedding your skin, to being reborn, to returning to the normal world with profound new conviction, a new insight to bring to the people. And the shedding of one's skin requires that we die to who we are to become something new, that we overcome resistance, that we overcome fear, that we overcome addictions, that we overcome the crutches we walk on to be reborn. Most people never do this, and this is why we need that warrior spirit. We need that heroic ethos again, because that is the fuel. That combined with aspiration is the fuel we need when we're at rock bottom to pick ourselves up and slough off the old and embrace the new. So this is why sex and violence are important. Sex, violence, and desire. Ooh, the three taboos that the modern world shies away from. The Buddhist spiritual, new agey, fluffy monks also shy away from. Sex, violence, and desire? Yes. To all my heroic brothers out there, affirm these things. My friends, when you get into a good sparring match and you fully release your inhibitions and you're just wailing on the heavy bag, or you're ducking and dodging and wrestling and fighting with every ounce of you, something awakens that just doesn't give a shit about that which is unimportant. When you get hit in the face 100 times in a sparring match, like, going to say hi to the girl, or losing a few dollars, or like getting rejected, or all the little fears and worries that rule our lives, this literally are just inferior, petty things. I think it's important that men fight, that men experience violence, because it actually wakes you up to life. I remember I was sitting in a coffee shop feeling all tired and sorry for myself, trying to write an essay, and a fight broke out right behind me. And I instantly got up and was about to like get involved and like break these guys up. And like my heart started beating, the adrenaline started pumping. I started feeling alive for the first time in the day. And then the fight kind of ended, like, you know, it got broken up, blah, blah, blah. Police came. And after I sat down to write, and I wrote with this like heroic gusto, this like bunch of guts and gusto basically, and my heart just poured onto the page, and I realized, man, we live with such low thumos, such low gusto, such low spiritedness today, and it creates all of these blockages and obstacles and resistances that wouldn't be there if we just had a bit more violence in our life, if we were connected more to the killer within us. And I say this, I'm not endorsing being violent. I'm endorsing learning a martial art, learn to wrestle, jujitsu, MMA, Muay Thai, like doing things like that, because it actually wakes you up. I think it's really important to fight. And the second thing is fuck. Like when you have a good fight and a good fuck, like you are so much more confident. You walk with a bit more swagger in your life. And it's because all this world is about inhibiting us. We have all of these inhibitions to our thumos, to our desire, to our killer instinct, to our masculine nature. And we can get past that when we dance hard, when we make love, when we have a good fight, like when we get back to these primal things with our brothers. I remember dancing all around the fire one night with my best friends, freestyle rapping, just like praying through our words and our expression, and just feeling this like vitality overtake us. And that's the thing I'm trying to communicate in this video, is getting down to that first principle of vitalism, of living with vitality, and the things that increase your thumos, that make you feel less inhibited, that make you feel more wild and primal and more alive. Those are good things, because when you get into that state, then you can start to refine that state of primal barbarian vitality. And as you refine that state, you become that vitalistic king who has self-command, self-control, but is connected to all parts of his nature and is full of raw power. He becomes a force of nature and life. And this is the key to your greatness. This is the key to a flourishing existence. It's not being the couch potato overwhelmed by all these demons and laziness and resistances and fears in life, but the fully liberated, upright, and vital man who is king of his kingdom. To get there, we need to be connected to the wild barbarian again. My name is Christian. This is Wisdom Warriors. If you are a leader out there, if you are a man on a mission or looking for your mission, I'm building a community for builders like you, and I would love to have you part of this awesome men's academy. There's a link in the description below to talk to me one-on-one. I'm trying to get a mastermind of badasses. So, would love to see you in there. If that is not for you, check out this video about living with high thumos. Don't forget to live dangerously today, my friends. Peace.